My wife said, "We're just going to a spa retreat. No men allowed." I replied, "Sounds relaxing." Then I showed up at the same resort with her best friend's husband. We compared photos, same hotel. Their faces turned pale when they saw us. But let me back up and tell you how I figured out that Miranda, my wife of 12 years, had become a professional liar. It started on a Tuesday evening in our kitchen. Miranda stood at the granite counter, sorting through brochures with the kind of focused intensity she usually reserved for quarterly reports at her HR job. Her auburn hair caught the overhead light as she arranged the glossy papers like evidence in a court case. "Jonathan, I've been thinking," she began, using that tone that meant she'd already made her decision and was just informing me of the outcome. "Stephanie and I want to do a wellness retreat next weekend. It's this amazing spa up in the mountains." I looked up from my construction blueprints, pencil still in hand. After 15 years of running Blackwood construction, I'd learned to read people as carefully as I read building plans. Miranda's voice carried that rehearsed casualness that meant she'd practiced this conversation. "Wellness retreat, huh?" I set down my pencil and gave her my full attention. "What kind of wellness are we talking about here?" She picked up one of the brochures, a glossy thing featuring women in white robes meditating by a pristine lake. Meditation, yoga, organic meals, digital detox. The whole experience is designed for female empowerment and spiritual cleansing. Female empowerment, I repeated, noting how she emphasized the word female. "So, no men allowed?" "Exactly." Miranda's smile was bright, almost relieved. "The philosophy is that women need space away from masculine energy to truly connect with their inner selves. It's completely exclusive to women." I nodded slowly, watching her face. In 12 years of marriage, I'd seen Miranda excited about exactly 3 things: promotions, expensive shoes, and proving other people wrong. Meditation and spiritual cleansing had never made the list. "How much does this interconnection cost?" $800 for the weekend, but Jonathan, I really need this. Work has been so stressful, and you know how things have been between us lately. Things between us had been fine, actually. We'd had dinner together every night that week, watched our usual shows, made small talk about our days. But I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled out my wallet and counted out $800 bills. "There you go, honey. Try not to achieve enlightenment without me." Miranda's face lit up with genuine surprise. She'd expected resistance, maybe even an argument. The fact that I'd agreed so easily seemed to throw her off balance for a moment. "Really? Just like that?" "Miranda, if you need a weekend away to find your inner goddess or whatever, I'm not going to stop you. I'll probably spend the weekend in my workshop anyway, catch up on some projects." She leaned over and kissed my cheek, and for a second, I caught a whiff of new perfume. Something expensive and floral that I'd never smelled before. "You're the best husband ever. Stephanie is going to be so excited." After Miranda went upstairs to call Stephanie, I sat alone with the wellness brochures. The Mountain Serenity Spa looked expensive and exclusive, the kind of place that charged premium prices for organic kale smoothies and crystal healing sessions. The photos showed women in yoga poses, couples enjoying romantic dinners, and amenities that seemed more suited to a luxury resort than a spiritual retreat. I flipped through the pages, noting the fine print. Nowhere did it mention being exclusively for women. In fact, several photos clearly showed male guests enjoying the facilities. My phone buzzed with a text from David Holt, Stephanie's husband and my occasional drinking buddy. David taught high school history and had the kind of analytical mind that made him excellent at spotting inconsistencies. "Hey man, weird question. Did Miranda mention anything about a women-only spa retreat this weekend?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Funny you should ask. She just told me the same thing." "Why?" "Stephanie gave me the exact same story tonight. Word for word, actually. Said it was some female empowerment thing, no men allowed." "Same here. What are the odds they both discovered the same exclusive women's retreat on the same weekend?" In my experience, pretty low. Want to grab a beer tomorrow and compare notes? I looked up at the ceiling, hearing Miranda's voice drifting down from our bedroom. She was on the phone with Stephanie, their conversation punctuated by excited laughter and hushed tones. "Yeah," I texted back. "I think we need to talk." The next evening, David and I met at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the edge of town that served cold beer and minded its own business. David arrived first, already nursing a Budweiser and looking like a man with questions that needed answers. "So," he said as I slid into the booth across from him, "tell me about this wellness retreat." I ordered a beer and pulled out the brochures Miranda had left on the kitchen counter. David produced an identical set from his jacket pocket. "Same place," I said, comparing the covers. "Same weekend," David added, checking the date Stephanie had circled. "Same story about female exclusivity." We sat in silence for a moment, drinking our beers and processing the implications. David was the first to speak. "Jonathan, I've been married to Stephanie for 8 years. She's never shown the slightest interest in meditation, yoga, or spiritual anything. Last month she complained that our neighbor's wind chimes were too mystical." I laughed, despite the growing knot in my stomach. "Miranda thinks organic food is a scam, and meditation is for people with too much time on their hands. But suddenly she needs a weekend of spiritual cleansing?" "And they both discovered this need at exactly the same time?" "With the exact same solution." David pulled out his phone and opened the spa's website. "Look at this. Mountain Serenity Spa and Resort. It's not a women-only facility, Jonathan. It's a couple's retreat. Look at these photos." He showed me the screen, scrolling through images of romantic dinners, couples massages, and co-ed yoga classes. The website advertised itself as the perfect romantic getaway for discerning couples. "Well," I said, finishing my beer in one long swallow, "that's interesting. What do you want to do about it?" I thought about Miranda's new perfume, her rehearsed explanation, and the way she'd seemed surprised by my easy agreement. I thought about 12 years of marriage, a mortgage we'd paid down together, and the construction business I'd built while she climbed the corporate ladder. I want to know what they're really doing up there. You thinking what I'm thinking? Depends. Are you thinking we should book a room at the same resort and see what kind of wellness our wives are really after? David's grin was sharp and humorless. Great minds think alike. We spent the next hour planning our own little retreat. David would handle the reservations under assumed names, cash payments to avoid credit card trails. I'd arrange for my foreman Eddie to cover any work emergencies. We'd drive up separately, check in at different times, and keep a low profile until we figured out what our wives were really up to. "You realize," David said as we prepared to leave, "we might be completely wrong about this. Maybe they really are just going for meditation and organic smoothies." I thought about the new lingerie I'd glimpsed in Miranda's shopping bag, the way she'd been guarding her phone lately, and the sudden interest in wellness that had appeared out of nowhere. "Maybe," I said, "but I don't think so." That night, I lay in bed listening to Miranda's breathing and thinking about deception. In construction, when you suspect a foundation has problems, you don't ignore the warning signs and hope for the best. You investigate. You dig deeper. You find out exactly how bad the damage is before you decide whether the structure can be saved or needs to be torn down and rebuilt. Miranda stirred beside me, murmuring something in her sleep that sounded like a name. Not my name. I stared at the ceiling and made my decision. This weekend, I was going to find out exactly what kind of wellness my wife was really after. And then I was going to decide what to do about it. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made the mountains look inviting and the lies feel heavier. Miranda had been up since dawn, packing and repacking her weekend bag with the nervous energy of someone preparing for an important performance. "I'm so excited about this retreat," she said for the third time. folding and refolding a silk nightgown that seemed more suited to seduction than meditation. Stephanie thinks it's going to be life-changing. I watched her from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, noting the careful attention she paid to her appearance. Full makeup for a digital detox weekend, hair styled for spiritual cleansing. The kind of outfit selection that suggested her inner goddess had expensive taste. "What time are you ladies heading out?" "Around 10. We want to get there early and really soak in the whole experience." She zipped up her bag and turned to face me, her smile bright and practiced. "What are your plans for the weekend?" "Probably work on that cabinet project in the basement, maybe catch up on some paperwork." She kissed me goodbye, her lips tasting like the expensive lipstick she'd applied for her wellness journey. "I'll miss you." "Miss you too, honey. Say hi to your inner goddess for me." After Miranda left, I called David to confirm our plan. He'd already checked in with the resort using the name David Miller, claiming to be a writer researching mountain retreats. I'd be Jonathan Stone, a businessman looking for a quiet weekend to decompress. "Stephanie left an hour ago," David reported, packed like she was going to Paris instead of a meditation retreat. "How about Miranda?" "Same thing. New clothes, new perfume, enough makeup for a photo shoot. Either they're taking this spiritual transformation very seriously, or they're not planning to spend much time in lotus position. I'll drive up first, get settled, scope out the layout. You follow in a couple hours?" "Sounds good. And David, bring a camera." The Mountain Serenity Spa and Resort sat nestled in a valley between two peaks, accessible by a winding road that offered spectacular views and plenty of privacy. The kind of place where wealthy couples went to reconnect, where discretion was part of the premium service package. I parked my truck in the guest lot and took a moment to study the property. The main building was a sprawling lodge constructed from local stone and timber, designed to blend with the natural surroundings while screaming expensive taste. Smaller cabins dotted the hillside, connected by stone pathways lit with subtle landscape lighting. The registration desk was staffed by a young woman with the kind of serene smile that probably came with employee training on mindfulness and customer service. "Welcome to Mountain Serenity," she said as I approached. "Checking in?" "Jonathan Stone. I have a reservation for the weekend." She typed efficiently, her smile never wavering. "Yes, here you are. One of our deluxe mountain view rooms. You're here for our couple's retreat package?" "Actually, I'm here alone. Business trip, sort of. Looking for some quiet time to think." "Of course. Many of our guests find the mountain setting very conducive to reflection and decision-making." She handed me a key card and a folder of resort information. "The spa facilities are open until 10 p.m., the restaurant serves until 9, and room service is available 24 hours. Is there anything specific you'd like to know about our amenities?" "I heard you have some kind of women's wellness program this weekend?" Her smile flickered slightly. "I'm not familiar with any exclusively women's programming. Our retreat packages are designed for couples, though we certainly welcome solo guests like yourself." "Interesting." I thanked her and headed to my room, texting David as I walked. "Checked in. No women-only programs according to staff. Where are you?" "Room 237. Haven't spotted them yet, but I found the pool area. Good vantage point from the bar." My room was exactly what I'd expected from a place that charged premium prices for mountain views and organic amenities. Rustic luxury with modern conveniences, the kind of carefully designed comfort that made people forget how much they were spending. I unpacked quickly and headed down to find David. The pool area was spectacular, an infinity design that seemed to blend seamlessly with the mountain landscape. The poolside bar offered an unobstructed view of the entire deck, along with sightlines to the main pathways and cabin entrances. David was already positioned at a corner table, wearing sunglasses and looking like any other resort guest enjoying an afternoon drink. He nodded as I approached, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Any sign of them?" I asked, ordering a beer from the attentive bartender. "Not yet, but I did some reconnaissance. The couple's retreat activities are all co-ed. Yoga classes, meditation sessions, romantic dinners. Whatever our wives are planning, it's not the official program. We settled in to wait, two husbands on a mission to uncover the truth about their wives' weekend getaway. The afternoon stretched on, other guests coming and going, but no sign of Miranda or Stephanie. At 4:30, David straightened in his chair. There. I followed his gaze to the main pathway, where two familiar figures were walking toward the pool area. Miranda and Stephanie, dressed in resort casual wear, looking relaxed and happy. But they weren't alone. Two men walked beside them, close enough to suggest familiarity, comfortable enough to indicate this wasn't their first meeting. One was tall and athletic, with the kind of build that suggested regular gym attendance and careful attention to appearance. The other was shorter but well-dressed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Well," David said quietly, "I guess we know why they needed a women-only retreat." I watched Miranda laugh at something the tall man said, her hand briefly touching his arm in a gesture of intimacy that made my stomach clench. 12 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her look at me the way she was looking at this stranger. "You getting this?" I asked David, who was discreetly positioning his phone to capture photos. Every lying second of it. The four of them settled at a table near the pool, ordering drinks and settling into conversation like old friends, or new lovers. Miranda sat close to the athletic man, while Stephanie seemed attached to his companion. They looked like two couples on a romantic getaway, which I supposed they were. "I need to get closer," I said, standing up. "Jonathan, don't do anything stupid." "I'm not going to confront them. I just want to hear what they're saying." I walked casually toward the restroom, which required passing near their table. As I got within earshot, I caught fragments of conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions. "Told Jonathan it was a women-only retreat," Miranda was saying, her voice carrying a note of smug satisfaction. "He actually gave me cash for it. $800 for my weekend of spiritual enlightenment." The tall man laughed. "What did you tell him about the spiritual part?" "Meditation, yoga, finding my inner goddess. He bought every word of it." "And if he gets suspicious?" "Jonathan, please. He's so focused on his construction projects, he barely notices what I'm doing half the time. As long as I come home with some story about chakras and organic smoothies, he'll never question it." Stephanie chimed in. "David's the same way. I could tell him I was joining a convent and he'd probably just ask if they have cable TV." More laughter, the kind of cruel amusement that comes from successfully deceiving someone who trusts you. I continued to the restroom, my hands shaking with anger and something that might have been relief. At least now I knew exactly where I stood. Miranda wasn't just cheating on me. She was enjoying the deception, taking pleasure in my supposed gullibility. When I returned to David's table, he took one look at my face and poured me a fresh beer. "Bad?" "Worse. She's not just lying about the retreat. She's bragging about how easy it was to fool me." "What do you want to do?" I looked back at the table where my wife was cuddling with another man, celebrating her successful deception with the kind of joy she used to reserve for our anniversaries. "I want to let them finish their drinks," I said slowly. "I want to get more photos, and then I want to introduce myself." "You sure about that?" "David, I've been married to that woman for 12 years. I've supported her career, paid for her ambitions, and never once questioned her loyalty. And she just told a complete stranger that I'm too stupid to notice when my own wife is lying to my face." I pulled out my phone and started recording video as Miranda leaned over to kiss the tall man, her hand resting possessively on his chest. "Yeah," I said, watching 12 years of marriage dissolve in real time. "I'm sure." The confrontation was going to happen. The only question was how much evidence I wanted to collect first, and how public I wanted to make their humiliation. As it turned out, I wanted both. David and I spent the next hour documenting everything. Photos of Miranda and Stephanie with their companions, video of intimate conversations and casual touches, audio recordings of their continued jokes about deceiving their husbands. By 6 o'clock, we had enough evidence to end both marriages and destroy any attempt at denial. "So what's the plan?" David asked, reviewing the photos on his phone. "Walk over there and ask how the meditation session went?" "Something like that." I stood up, straightened my shirt, and walked directly toward their table. David followed a few steps behind, his phone ready to capture whatever happened next. Miranda saw me first. I watched the progression of emotions across her face: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, pure terror. She went pale so quickly I thought she might faint. "Jonathan?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Funny story," I said, pulling up a chair and sitting down uninvited. "David and I decided we needed some wellness too. Isn't that right, David?" David appeared beside Stephanie, whose face had gone through the same color transformation as Miranda's. "That's right. We heard about this amazing couples retreat and thought we should check it out." The two men at the table looked confused, clearly trying to figure out who we were and why the women looked like they'd seen ghosts. "Ladies," I continued pleasantly, "aren't you going to introduce us to your meditation instructors?" Miranda's mouth opened and closed without sound. Stephanie managed to find her voice first. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" David pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. "Because it looks like my wife is on a romantic weekend with another man after telling me she was going to a women-only spiritual retreat." The tall man finally spoke up. "Look, I don't know who you guys are, but I'm Jonathan Blackwood," I said, extending my hand in mock politeness. "Miranda's husband. And you are?" He didn't take my hand. Tyler. Nice to meet you, Tyler. Tell me, what kind of meditation techniques have you been teaching my wife?" Tyler looked at Miranda, who was staring at the table like she wished it would swallow her whole. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Tyler said. "Oh, there's definitely been a misunderstanding," I agreed. "See, Miranda told me she was coming here for a women-only wellness retreat. Spiritual cleansing, female empowerment, finding her inner goddess. That sort of thing." I pulled out my own phone and played back the audio I'd recorded earlier, Miranda's voice clearly audible. "Told Jonathan it was a women-only retreat. He actually gave me cash for it." The silence that followed was deafening. Other resort guests were starting to notice the tension at our table, conversations quieting as people sensed drama unfolding. "Jonathan, please," Miranda finally whispered. "Can we talk about this privately?" "Privately?" I looked around at the other tables, noting the interested faces turned in our direction. "But Miranda, I thought you enjoyed sharing details about our marriage with strangers. Didn't you just finish telling Tyler here how easy it was to fool me?" Tyler started to stand up. "Maybe I should go." "Sit down, Tyler." My voice carried the kind of authority I used on construction sites when someone was about to make a dangerous mistake. "You're part of this conversation now." He sat. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice calm and conversational. "Miranda, you're going to pack your things and check out of whatever room you're staying in. Stephanie, you're going to do the same thing." "And then?" Stephanie asked, her voice barely audible. "Then you're going to drive home and think very carefully about what you want to say when I file for divorce on Monday morning." Miranda's head snapped up. "Divorce? Jonathan, you can't be serious." "Can I? Let's see. Adultery, deception, theft, because taking my money under false pretenses is theft. And let's not forget the emotional abuse of making me feel like an idiot for trusting my own wife." "It's not that simple," Miranda protested. "We can work this out. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you want." "What I want," I said, standing up slowly, "is a wife who doesn't lie to my face and then brag about it to her lover." I dropped a 20 on the table to cover my drinks. "Enjoy the rest of your wellness retreat, ladies. I hope you found what you were looking for." As I turned to leave, Tyler made the mistake of opening his mouth again. "Hey, man, maybe you should calm down. No need to make a scene." I stopped walking and turned back to face him. "Tyler, let me give you some advice. The woman you're sleeping with just spent $800 of my money to be here with you. Money I earned working 10-hour days in construction while she sat in climate-controlled offices making PowerPoint presentations. So when you suggest I should calm down, what you're really saying is that I should be okay with paying for my wife's affair." Tyler's face flushed red. "I didn't know she was married." "Really?" I pulled out my phone again and showed him a photo of Miranda's left hand, her wedding ring clearly visible. "What did you think this was? A fashion accessory?" The entire pool area had gone quiet now, everyone watching our little drama unfold. Miranda was crying, Stephanie looked like she wanted to disappear, and Tyler was realizing that his romantic weekend had turned into a public humiliation. "Jonathan, please," Miranda tried one more time. "Don't do this here." "You're right," I said. "This isn't the place for this conversation. The place for this conversation was 12 years ago when you promised to love, honor, and cherish me. Or maybe 6 months ago when you started planning this little deception. Or even this morning when you kissed me goodbye and told me you'd miss me." I looked around the pool area, noting the faces watching us with the kind of fascinated horror usually reserved for traffic accidents. "But since you chose to have your affair in public, I figured you wouldn't mind ending your marriage in public too." David appeared beside me. "Ready to go?" "Yeah, I'm done here." As we walked away, I heard Miranda calling my name, her voice desperate and pleading. I didn't turn around. I'd seen everything I needed to see, heard everything I needed to hear. "How do you feel?" David asked as we reached the parking lot. "Like I just found out my house has been built on a foundation of lies, and I need to decide whether to renovate or demolish." And I looked back at the resort, where my wife was probably trying to explain to her lover why her husband had just ruined their romantic weekend. Demolition it is. The drive home gave me 3 hours to think about revenge. Not the hot, angry kind that leads to broken bones and criminal charges. The cold, calculated kind that dismantles someone's life piece by piece, using their own choices against them. Miranda had made this public. She'd involved other people, stolen my money, and turned our marriage into a joke she shared with strangers. Now it was my turn to share. I spent Sunday morning in my workshop, surrounded by the familiar smell of sawdust and the comforting weight of tools in my hands. Building things had always been my therapy, the process of creating something solid and permanent from raw materials. Today, I was planning a different kind of construction project. Miranda had returned home Saturday night, her key turning in the lock around 11 p.m. I'd heard her footsteps on the stairs, the soft sound of her trying not to wake me. She'd slept in the guest room, and I'd let her. We both needed time to think about what came next. Now, as I measured and cut pieces for a cabinet that would outlast my marriage, I heard her moving around upstairs, the shower running, the hair dryer, the sounds of someone preparing for what she probably hoped would be a conversation about forgiveness and second chances. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Stephanie wants to talk. Says it was all a mistake, temporary insanity, whatever. How's Miranda handling it?" I typed back, "Haven't talked yet. Still deciding how much mercy I'm feeling." Any mercy? I looked around my workshop, at the projects we'd planned together, the tools I'd bought with money from the business we'd built as a team. 12 years of shared dreams, joint decisions, and mutual support. All of it undermined by her willingness to lie to my face and laugh about it with another man. "Not much," I replied. Miranda appeared in the workshop doorway around 10, dressed carefully in jeans and a sweater that she knew I liked. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled, her expression a carefully crafted mixture of remorse and hope. "Jonathan, can we talk?" I didn't look up from my measuring. Talk. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. What I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. What exactly are you sorry for, Miranda? For lying to you? For betraying your trust? For being with Tyler? What about taking my money to pay for your affair? She flinched. That too. What about bragging to your lover about how easy it was to fool me? I never said that. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording. Her voice filled the workshop, clear and unmistakable. Told Jonathan it was a women-only retreat. He actually gave me cash for it. He's so focused on his construction projects, he barely notices what I'm doing half the time. Miranda's face went white again. You recorded me? I documented everything. Photos, videos, audio recordings, 12 years of marriage, and I never once questioned your loyalty. Turns out I should have been more suspicious. Jonathan, please. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. Tyler doesn't mean anything to me. How long? What? How long have you been seeing him? She hesitated, and I knew the answer would be worse than I'd imagined. 3 months. 3 months. I set down my measuring tape and finally looked at her. 3 months of planning, lying, sneaking around. 3 months of coming home to me every night and pretending to be a faithful wife. That's not a mistake, Miranda. That's a deliberate choice you made over and over again. I can explain. No need. I heard your explanation yesterday. You think I'm too stupid and too distracted to notice when my own wife is cheating on me. I don't think you're stupid. Really? Because that's exactly what you told Tyler. You said I was so focused on my work that I barely noticed what you were doing. Miranda started crying then, the kind of tears that might have moved me a week ago. Now they just seemed like another manipulation, another performance designed to get what she wanted. What do you want me to say, Jonathan? I made a terrible mistake. I hurt you. I hurt us, and I'm sorry. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems, rebuild our trust. What problems, Miranda? What exactly was so wrong with our marriage that you needed to find comfort with another man? We've been distant lately, more like roommates than husband and wife. When? When have we been distant? We have dinner together every night. We watch TV together. We talk about our days. Last month we went to your company party together, and you introduced me to your coworkers as the best husband in the world. It's hard to explain. Try me. She wiped her eyes, smearing her carefully applied makeup. I felt like we were just going through the motions, like you took me for granted. I took you for granted. I repeated the words slowly, tasting the irony. The man who works 10-hour days to pay for your lifestyle, who supported your career moves, who never questioned your girls' nights out or weekend shopping trips, I took you for granted. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? I meant that we weren't passionate anymore. We weren't excited about each other. So, you decided to find passion with Tyler. It wasn't supposed to happen. We met at the gym, started talking, became friends. It just evolved from there. For 3 months. Yes. While you were coming home to me every night, sleeping in our bed, using my money to pay for dates with your boyfriend. It wasn't like that. I pulled out my phone again and showed her the photos from yesterday. Miranda laughing with Tyler, touching his arm, kissing him by the pool. It was exactly like that. She stared at the photos, her face crumbling as she realized how damning the evidence was. What do you want, Jonathan? Do you want me to beg? Do you want me to grovel? I'll do whatever it takes to save our marriage. What I want, I said slowly, is for you to understand that our marriage ended the moment you decided I was too stupid to deserve the truth. So that's it? 12 years? And you're just going to throw it all away? I'm not throwing anything away, Miranda. You already did that. I walked past her toward the workshop stairs. I'm going to Eddie's to watch the game. When I get back, I want you gone. Gone where? I don't care. Hotel, friend's house, Tyler's place. Anywhere but here. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. The deed is in my name only, bought with money from my business. You can check with a lawyer if you want, but I think you'll find that adultery affects property division in divorce proceedings. She followed me up the stairs, her voice getting more desperate. You can't just kick me out, I have rights. So did I. The right to a faithful wife, the right to honesty, the right not to be made a fool of in public. How'd that work out for me? In the kitchen, I grabbed my keys and wallet. Miranda stood in the doorway, blocking my path. Jonathan, please, don't do this. I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provide, the lifestyle I make possible, the comfort of having a husband who pays the bills while you play house with your boyfriend. But you don't love me. That's not true. Miranda, if you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 3 months lying to my face. If you loved me, you wouldn't have bragged to your lover about how easy it was to deceive me. If you loved me, you would have ended our marriage before you started another relationship. I stepped around her, heading for the front door. You have until 6 o'clock to pack whatever you need and get out. After that, I'm changing the locks. And then what? I turned back to look at her one last time, this woman I'd shared 12 years of my life with, who had just revealed herself to be a stranger. Then I file for divorce and make sure everyone knows exactly why our marriage ended. You wouldn't. Watch me. I left her standing in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together, finally understanding that some foundations can't be repaired once they've been compromised. The demolition was just beginning. Eddie's house was exactly what you'd expect from a bachelor construction worker. Comfortable furniture, a massive TV, and a refrigerator stocked with beer and leftover pizza. Eddie himself was a good friend and a better foreman, the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back and never ask questions about why you needed it. So, he said, handing me a cold beer as the football game played in the background. Want to tell me why you look like someone just told you your truck needs a new transmission? I gave him the abbreviated version, the fake retreat, the investigation, the confrontation, and Miranda's confession. Eddie listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. 3 months, he said when I finished. 3 months of lying to your face and spending your money on another man. That's about the size of it. What are you going to do? Divorce her. Take back everything I can legally take back. Make sure everyone knows what kind of person she really is. Eddie nodded approvingly. Good. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. The thing that gets me, I said, staring at my beer, is how much she enjoyed deceiving me. It wasn't just about Tyler. It was about proving she was smarter than me, more sophisticated, more deserving of whatever she wanted. Some people are just wired that way. They get off on putting one over on the people who trust them. 12 years, Eddie. 12 years of marriage, and I never saw this side of her. Maybe because she never had a reason to show it before. Maybe this Tyler guy brought out something that was always there, just hidden. I thought about that as we watched the game, drinking beer and eating pizza like normal Sunday afternoon. But nothing felt normal anymore. My entire understanding of my marriage, my wife, and my own judgment had been turned upside down in the space of 24 hours. My phone buzzed with a text from Miranda. Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. I showed the message to Eddie, who snorted. Like adults? She's been acting like a teenager sneaking around behind Daddy's back. Should I respond? Up to you. But if it was me, I'd let her sweat for a while. Let her think about what she's losing while she packs her bags. I turned off my phone and settled in to watch the rest of the game. Miranda could wait. After 3 months of deception, she could handle a few hours of uncertainty. At 6 o'clock, I drove home to find Miranda's car gone from the driveway. Inside, the house felt different. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like a wound that had finally been cleaned out. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown, room 237. Please call me when you're ready to discuss this rationally. I love you, and I want to fight for our marriage. M. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Then I called a locksmith and scheduled an appointment for first thing Monday morning. The fight for our marriage had already been fought and lost. Miranda just didn't know it yet. But she was about to find out. Monday morning came without drama. No shouting, no tearful phone calls, no last-minute pleas. Just clarity. At 9 sharp, I was sitting in my attorney's office with a folder so thick it barely closed. Photos, audio, dates, transactions, a timeline so clean it felt surgical. My lawyer flipped through it once, then looked up at me. This is thorough. I build things for a living, I said. Foundations matter. He nodded. Then this will be straightforward. Adultery, financial deception, misrepresentation. You're protected. Protected. Funny word. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like closure. By noon, Miranda's HR director knew. Not because I called, because Miranda panicked and tried to preempt the fallout. Turns out explaining why you took company PTO for a women-only wellness retreat that never existed gets complicated when photos surface of you entertaining a gym consultant by a resort pool. By 3, Stephanie called David in tears. By 4, Tyler had blocked Miranda everywhere. Men like him thrive on secrecy. Exposure destroys the fantasy. By evening, Miranda finally understood. She showed up at the house despite the changed locks, standing on the porch like a stranger. I opened the door just far enough to speak. I lost everything, she said. No tears this time, just shock. My reputation, my job's on thin ice. Tyler won't answer. Stephanie hates me. I didn't think. No, I interrupted calmly. You did think. You just thought you'd never be caught. She swallowed. Is there any chance we can still fix this? I looked at her the way you look at a house after a structural collapse. No anger, no nostalgia, just assessment. Miranda, you didn't just cheat. You rewrote reality and expected me to live in it. You didn't trip. You built this. Silence. I loved you, she whispered. I believe you, I said. Just not in the way that matters. I closed the door gently. No slam, no speech, no victory lap. Weeks later, the divorce finalized faster than anyone expected. No drawn-out war, no ugly courtroom scenes, just signatures and silence. I kept the house. The business grew. Sleep came easier. And the strangest thing? I wasn't bitter. Because the truth is, what I lost wasn't a marriage. It was an illusion. And what I gained was something far rarer. Certainty. Now, when someone says, trust me, I listen. But when their story doesn't align with reality, I don't argue, I don't accuse, I investigate. And if the foundation is rotten, I demolish without hesitation.